Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar titled Legal Tips and Advice, Everything You Need to Know about Visas, Residency and Your Property Purchase in Italy. My name is Rosie and I'll be your host for today. Your Overseas Home is here to help you navigate the complexities of international real estate with trustworthy resources and connections that can help provide expert insight that will help you on your journey to finding your perfect overseas home. This afternoon, we're fortunate to be joined by Stefania Russo of Property Organizer and Jake Roscoe from Smart Currency Exchange. In today's session, we will largely follow a question and answer format with a short presentation from Stefania about the buying process and a conversation with Jake about currency. At the end of the webinar, we will open the floor up to questions, and if you have any questions as we go along, please type your questions into the tab on the right-hand side of your screen. So Jake, can you introduce yourself and Smart Currency for me?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Rosie. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jake Roscoe. I work for Smart Currency Exchange as an account manager. I've been in currency for the past over 3 years now, which is pretty crazy. And before that, I was in real estate in Spain. So I know it's not Italy, but it's, know quite well about the property purchase overseas in general. So from both sides, which, should hopefully help on this webinar.
Lovely, thank you. And Stefania, would you like to introduce yourself and the Property Organizer?
Yes, hi, my name is Stefania Russo. I'm the founder of Property Organizer. We are not an estate agency, but we are a property consultancy company that deals with everything related to buying a property in Italy. So from the searching to the very final renovating and the whole process, conveyance, mortgages to assistance. So we help the clients on a 360 degrees, as people say. Property Organizer, it's been 18 years this summer. So we've been here for a bit, and we hope to assist the clients from all over the world to move to Italy or buy for investment.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you both for joining me today. So just let me find my questions. Okay, so I will let you know that this session is being recorded, so you can watch it back at a later date if you need to catch up on anything. Okay, so let's start by learning a little bit more about currency exchange. So Jake, can you tell me about the pound to euro rate? What's affecting it right now?
Yeah, of course. So pound to euro at the moment is between 116 and 117, roughly. The pound to euro rate can be affected by all sorts of different things, political events, such as we all know about Kwasi Kwarteng's budget in late 2022 and how that affected the markets. Also, economic data such as, inflation is a big topic at the moment for obvious reasons, which can affect the markets. And I don't like to talk too much about conflict, but we all know about the current wars that are happening at the moment across the world, which again, unfortunately, can affect the market as well. So the markets are always moving, and they will continue to move. So at the moment, the pound is pretty strong versus the euro. We had a 2-year high at the beginning of March, and if you're buying in Italy, it's a pretty good time to be buying at the moment. I hope that answered your question, Rosie.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Oh, sorry, just lost my sheet. Okay, so buying in Italy, first steps, I need to set a budget. Am I right? I won't get the rate that I hear on the news?
Yeah, that's correct. So the rate that you hear on the news is what we call the interbank rate, which isn't actually available to individuals like most people that will be on this webinar. So that is basically the rate that the market is actually trading at the moment, not the rate that you will get on your exchange. And
okay.
Sorry, did you say about a budget, right? If someone's working with a budget, if you need to set a budget in euros, my advice would be speak to a currency specialist at Smart as soon as you can. Either myself or one of my colleagues will be more than happy to help you and discuss your options and help you set a budget for your overseas property purchase.
Okay, lovely, thank you. My colleagues just messaged me to say I got the title of this webinar wrong, so apologies. This is how to buy in Italy, from making plans to moving in. And if you're still here, thanks for staying around. Okay. So we've set our budget, lovely. So can you share with me the rough process in terms of physically buying your property in Italy? How do you get your pounds to buy it?
That's a good question. So, I mean, we're all probably pretty familiar with the actual purchasing process, and I won't go into it too much because that's, Stefania is here for that. But yeah, ultimately, if you're going out on a viewing trip, then and you're serious about buying a property in Italy, then it will come to a point when obviously you do all the nice fun bits, eating your pizza and your pasta, and looking at your properties over there, and then you find your dream home. And you're going to make an offer. The offer gets accepted, and then you'll be putting a deposit down. So this is where smart currency can help you with that deposit, because obviously it needs to be paid in euros. So yeah, the sooner you can get in touch with us, even before your viewing trip, ideally, that would be the best option, and give yourself as much education as you can get and as many options as you can get as soon as you can if you're serious with going about the purchase. And then yeah, once you've paid your deposit, hopefully with smart currency, then you will need to pay the balance of the property, usually within we say around about 3 months time. It could vary depending on funding, mortgages, etc. But yeah, in that 3 months, you're then exposed to what we call currency risk. So, from the day that you put the deposit down, obviously the property price has been set. Now, that property price isn't going to change in euros, but what might change is how much you pay in pounds for that property. So that's where we say get in touch with a specialist, make sure you understand your risk, and try and mitigate it as much as possible.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And in terms of mitigating that risk, do you offer contracts in terms of transfers and things?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have, the two most popular contracts, if you will, are forward and spot contracts. So spot contract is you're literally buying, your euros on the day, and whatever the price is on that day, that is the price that you will get. But what a lot of our clients use to mitigate their risk is a forward contract. Now, a forward contract essentially is, like we said before, a contract that helps. If you see a rate that you like today, but you don't need to pay for it until 3 months time, then you can actually fix that rate today, so you know exactly how much you're going to be paying in 3 months for that overseas property. And yeah, a lot of our clients use the forward contract with us.
Okay, that sounds handy. How long can you how long can you lock in that rate for?
Up to 24 months, really. Like, you can look it up to 2 years before. Most of our clients usually lock in the forward contract when they have their offer accepted, because obviously they know then exactly how much the property is in euros, which kind of makes the most sense. But yeah, you can, if you find a rate that's really good today and you want to make the most of it, you can do it up to 2 years in advance if you're really sure that you're going to be making the purchase. So we're pretty flexible.
Fab, thank you. And so how do I send the money to Italy? Do I need a bank account in Italy, or are you able to send it to, my lawyers out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. We can send it wherever you want, but in most cases we tend to send the funds to solicitors, just because it's it's an easier process, and sometimes you can't actually open a bank account until you've signed your contract and got a property, a local address. So yeah, to get past that, we send it to your solicitor, and that makes the process a bit easier usually.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. So what happens, heaven forbid, that you lock in a rate with a forward contract, and your property purchase for some reason or another falls through?
So, in my experience, I mean, obviously, things like this can happen. It's probably happened 2 or 3 times, since I've been in currency. But yeah, essentially, what we do is we buy the euros on the date of you locking in the forward contract. If for whatever reason, like you said, God forbid, the property doesn't go through, then what we will do is, if you cancel that forward contract, we will basically sell the euros back to the market on the day when the forward contracts gets cancelled. Now, that is very much it depends on what the rate is on the day. What happens with that forward contract and the cancellation. If it's higher or lower, then there could be some fees involved. But like I said, it doesn't usually happen. It's very rare. Usually people that are fixing in a forward contract are pretty certain that they're going to go ahead with the purchase.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And for the people listening on this call, why should they use Smart Currency Exchange rather than their high street bank?
So if there's one thing I want you to take away from today is please stay away from high street banks if you are looking to, exchange money into another currency. The reason is, whether it be Smart or another currency provider, we can offer better pricing than the banks. So usually between 2 and 3% cheaper. We offer better service. This is what we do. We do it day in, day out, help thousands of clients with their currency. Whereas, the banks, it's kind of like a bit of a side hustle, if you will, not a side hustle, but that if everyone understands that. So yeah, the service isn't as good with your bank usually. And also they don't have the options that we have. So, the one that we've just discussed, which is forward contract, I don't know of any banks that actually offer that service, and there's other options as well available. When you actually do speak to a currency specialist, and we work around you and what's best for you and your budget, because everyone's obviously different. So yeah, don't use your bank.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Okay, and just in case there's anybody else on this call who's not moving from the UK, maybe they're moving from US, do you deal in other currencies? So like other than pound to euros, do you do, dollar to euro, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we trade all major currencies, and others that aren't major as well. If you do have a requirement that is not, pounds, euros, or something a bit more rogue, please get in touch with us, and we'll see what we can do, and if we can help with your currency pair. But we do work with most of the currency pairs. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No
So there's a lot of different reasons that people would perhaps use a currency service after purchasing that property. So maybe ongoing costs, management, that kind of thing. Are you able to help with that? Or do you just do large transfers, or can you help after I've purchased?
That is a good question as well. So we can help with any level of payment. We do have a lot of clients that even after they've purchased their house, they have mortgage payments or pension coming in pounds, for example, that they need to transfer to euros. So we have another option there, which is called a regular payment plan. Which I won't go too much into it, but basically, you can fix a price for a regular payment coming in every month, knowing that you need, say for example, €1,000 for your mortgage every month. You can fix that for up to 12 months, and that will just come out of your account every month. So there are, like I said before, there are multiple, other options apart from the spot and the forward that we can offer, and we can help anyone, no matter how big or how small, and usually whatever currency they need as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you, Jake.
Nice.
I will say there is a QR code on the screen just now, and you're able to scan that with your phone, and it will take you to the Smart Currency Exchange site, and you can get a quote if you want to. Obviously, free quote, no obligation to trade, so feel free to take advantage. Thank you so much, Jake.
No worries.
Now I'll hand over to Stefania so we can find out a little bit more about the buying process.
Okay, shall I?
Go for it.
About how to buy in Italy from making plans to moving in. So, well, again, hi everyone. So, what I'm going to speak about today is what we need to know to buy and move to Italy. So, it's a little bit more on the kind of resident plan or someone who plans to be in Italy for a fair amount of time, not just buying for investment or for rental. So firstly, we're going to discuss about the budget, so what to consider in terms of taxes and the likely cost, and then you can join and exchange it with Jake. How we budget, so a cash purchase versus probably a mortgage. Deciding whether we're planning to move permanently or a partial move. And so I will explain a little bit the difference between the fiscal and the elective residency, and then also what to consider after you bought your home in Italy. So taxes and likely cost. There are some costs that are, let's say, obligatory, and some instead that are, discretionary of the buyer. The first one is a surveyor. Now, not everybody go for a survey. We highly, highly recommend it because the survey doesn't just check the property in terms of its condition, but also check the planning history of the property. Very often, some people do the mistakes of see a property, looking at the floor plan matches the existing layout, great condition, probably recently renovated, and they say, oh, we don't need a survey, we're fine with it. And we tend to push for a survey because, as I said, the survey check the condition of a property, the document on the land registry, and also all the planning history. So even if a property is brand new and totally renovated, that doesn't mean that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, didn't have some kind of works done without planning. And if there were some issues throughout the history of a building, then basically the final deed could even be void. So it's a good precaution, and it takes a few weeks, and an offer can be made conditional to a successful survey. Now, survey's cost varies depending on the region, the type of property, and it's not like an old story, the south is cheaper, the north is more expensive. As I always use as an example is Piedmont, where you have a big region. The southern part of Piedmont, it's wine area with the Barolo, the Monferrato, and there you can have a country homes, 200-300 or even more with hectares of land, and a survey can cost 600-800 euros. Equally, you're going on Lake Maggiore, where an apartment of 70 or 80 square meter can cost a survey 1,500 euros. So really depends on the type of property and location. Then there is a notary. Notary instead is obligatory. In Italy, people do not need to buy through a lawyer. A lawyer is an optional kind of person who will represent your interest of a buyer or interest of a seller. While instead the notary is a total independent. What it means, it doesn't represent any of the parties, but just check that the property has all the legal titles, the property comply with legislations, and that the buyer has the right to buy. We need to remember that there are some nationalities that have some restrictions. Recently, there's been some restriction on Canadian, although Canadians still can buy property, but in only certain locations. So we need to ensure that the notary, the notary has to carry out all these checks. And the cost depends, again, on the type of the property. They have a fixed price list that they have to kind of follow. It really depends also on who the buyer is, in the sense that if a company purchase a property, it's more expensive than if an individual buys a property. If there is a mortgage, the fees are a little bit higher. So we need, the notary can vary, and I would say to budget between 1,000 and 5,000, depending on the type of home you're planning to buy. Lawyers, as I said, they're not obligatory. We recommend them again because while the notary comes on the transaction quite at the very end, or almost at the end of the conveyancing story of a property, the lawyer can be involved from the very beginning of the due diligence, working together with the surveyor, and therefore can ensure that everything is, the interests of the buyers are looked after. The fees of the lawyers vary from company to company, so it's always good to basically check and have a comparison and ask for more than one quote. Agency fees. If you buy through, if you buy in Italy, it is more likely than not that you are going through an agency. The local Italian agency charges between 3 and 5% of the property price, plus 22% of Italian VAT. So as you can see, Italian agents can charge between 6 and 10% on total, plus the 22% VAT, which is quite high. And then this one, it's depends on estate agents. If we go through us, as I said, we're not an estate agent. We only work for the buyers, and therefore we have a flat fee of 4%, which include also other services as we obtain the fiscal code for our clients without clients going to buy, without having to attend the tax office. We open an Italian bank account. We help them with the power of attorney. We do the utility switches at the end after they buy, and we organize the property taxes at the end after they become the owner. So within our 4%, we put some complementary services for our clients. And then finally, there are the taxes. Now, the taxes get calculated differently depending on whether the property is bought through a company. Most of them are new builds, or from individuals. So in this case, most of them are resales. So from a company, you're looking at a 4 or a 10% VAT. So it's a 4 or 10% on top of the property price. If a property is bought promising at completion that you will register residency in Italy, and you have a time within 18 months from the closing time to do this registration. Otherwise, if you buy through an individual, it's going to be a 2% of the cadastral value if you buy saying that you're going to register residency in Italy, or 9% of the cadastral value if you say that you are going to buy as holiday home only. What the cadastral value is, it's kind of difficult to explain. So I always go from the opposite. What is not? The cadastral value is not the property price of the property. It's not a commercial value. It's not a valuation on the market, but it's a number that is given, unique number that is given to each property for tax purposes. And that this number is used in different way depending for the calculation of the annual property taxes, or for the garbage refusal disposal tax, or for the closing. So all together, if somebody buys from a building company, he should budget between the 10 and 15% on top of the property price. When instead, if it's from individual, you're looking between a 6 to 9%. Really depends on the property price and the level of taxes that will need to be calculated. One thing that I always say is quite, because a lot of clients get really surprised that the more expensive a property is, this percentage reduces, because the cadastral value is usually less than half of the price. But for a property, for example, of 500,000, the cadastral value for which the calculation of a 2 or 9% get multiplied by could be 200,000-300,000. A property of $1 million could be again 200,000-300,000. One instead, a property of 100,000, the cadastral value might 70,000-80,000. So that there is a bit of a difference. So then, if you have a little bit of an idea how much is the budget that you need to consider, you need to think: are you going to buy as a cash buyer, or do I need a mortgage? And it's important with a mortgage that you do check your affordability in Italy before even start to look at property on website. In Italy, the mortgages are given in a total different way than in the US or in the UK. It's not the amount of somebody earns plus multiply by 3, 4, or 5, whatever. The affordability assessment is based on the income, on the outgoings, how many dependent, how many mortgages somebody has already, and it's got a lot of other factors. So it is important to check before we have a person, for example, that help our client to understand up to how much they're able to take a mortgage based on their personal circumstances, and obviously then they can have an idea what the budget can be. In Italy, there are only 2 types of mortgages, so we're not very fancy. We only got variable and fixed rate. And another important thing is that mortgages in Italy cannot be given for loan to values of very high loan to values, but they tend to be between 40 and 60%. So if somebody has a budget, want to buy a property of 200,000, has to think to have at least a deposit of 100,000. Another thing that is different from other places in other countries is that the mortgages in Italy are calculated only on the existing income. So, and that's why I said there are no other type of mortgages other than variable and fixed. The buy-to-let do not exist. Mortgages are based on what the person income is in the last 2 years. So the banks are not interested in whether you're going to rent it out, whether you're turning into a B&B, the income that you will you receive afterwards. They're not interested. They want to know what is your earning last year, what is your earning 2 years ago, and they assume that is going to be the same for future years. Another important thing that very often clients say, oh, I have dual citizenship, I can apply for a better mortgage, or I'm going to move to Italy, therefore I'm going to be resident, or shall I move to be in Italy and renting so I become a resident and I got a better mortgage? Doesn't matter. Unfortunately, what the banks do check is only where the income is generated from. So if the income is not generated in Italy, the same rule applies. You're looking around the 50% loan to value, as I said, 40 to 60. So most of our clients are going between the 50 and 60% loan to value. Finally, if somebody doesn't want to take a mortgage in Italy, could decide to take a mortgage in their own country by raising equity against one of their properties in their own country. And in this case, when you are in Italy, you become a cash buyer in all effect. One thing is important is that while one offer can be made conditional to a mortgage, it is difficult to make an offer conditional to mortgages abroad. So one can make an offer conditional to the mortgage on the property that is purchasing, but cannot say it's conditional to a mortgage that I need to take against my property in America or in the UK. Now that we have an overview of the cost and the way one can proceed in buy a property in Italy, i.e. Mortgage or no mortgage, it is important to understand the next step to how much you're planning to stay in Italy. So how long will you want to be in Italy for? This will basically define whether you need to apply for residency in Italy, and therefore also the type of taxation that you can apply for when you purchase the property. And also, this one is just as I wanted to clarify, this is just a general overview and general rules. So we're always happy to chat with our client and understand their personal circumstances and see how long they want to stay, what is the best way for them, and what is the level of taxation that they need to consider. Firstly, we'd like to remember that one person can have a double residency. So if somebody buy and say that they're going to register residency in Italy, and to apply for the cheaper taxation at closing, they will need to do so within 18 months from completion. Doesn't mean that one has to renounce to the residency in their own country. One can be resident in two different places. Lot of questions are about their income being taxed in Italy if they decided to buy the property and register residence in Italy. Now, this one is the difference between elective resident or being fiscally resident in Italy. If somebody buys a property and registers residency in Italy, but then stays in Italy for less than 6 months, is only electively resident. And that basically means their income in their own country doesn't get touched. While instead, if somebody buys as resident and registered residence in Italy and then decided to stay in Italy for 6 months plus 1 day, then in that case becomes fiscally resident in Italy. And being fiscally resident in Italy means that the income generated in their own country will also be taxed in Italy. It won't be fully taxed, but if the taxation in Italy is higher than what it is in their own country, they will have to pay they should pay the difference of the income tax. Another thing important to say is that if somebody decided to register residency in Italy, and this apply now for the UK since the Brexit, you will need to apply for a visa. So while somebody within Europe can register residency in Italy without doing any extra step outside Italy, but they only have to go at the local authority and register residency, so somebody from France, Spain, or Holland, whatever. If somebody is non-EU, so UK, US, Australian, etc., they will need to apply first for a visa at the Italian consulate in their own country. So we had in the past the clients that completed and sold everything in the US and said, I'm ready, tell me, Stefania, where to go for the elective residency now. And I'm like, no, you need to go back to the US and do the application at the Italian consulate. So once the visa is being issued, the second step is to go to the Italian local authority for the residency. It is important to remember that if somebody decide to register residence in Italy, but they're planning to stay less than 6 months, they will still need to register, and they are known from Europe, they will still need to register residency at the consulates, because basically registered residency means that you are planning to stay more than 90 days over a 6 months period in Italy, and that is the only requirement. There are different type of requirements depending on the visa type. We help clients, for example, to look at their circumstances, and then we help them to apply for the visa. And there are some restrictions. So most of our clients going for an elective visa, which is a visa when people have some kind of income that is not related to employee jobs where they have to be physically in their own country. Visa requirement asks for a minimum amount of income, which is about 30,000 per person, and for couple goes around the 38,000 euros to have as a minimum requirement. And one important thing is the elective residency visa does not allow people to work while in Italy. There has been actually a new visa that has been introduced since this April, which is called remote working visa or nomad visa. But although allow people to work remotely, and to the people that remotely are able to work register residence in Italy with their visa. It's a visa with a lot of limitations, so only highly skilled non-EU professional who work using the internet can apply for that visa. And also there are a lot of other restrictions. You need to have a lot of qualification in order to apply. But if somebody works as a freelancer, or we've been helping a lot of our clients who spend in Italy 3-4 months of the year, and they don't work when they are in Italy, but when they are in their own country, they work. Some have been journalists, some have been lawyers. Then there is not a stop in getting an elective residency visa, and we've been successfully in helping them to acquire that kind of visa. Finally, benefit of applying for residency in Italy. Well, firstly, there is the level of taxation. It is very different. As I said, you have a good 6% VAT discount if you buy as a new build, and on the other end there is another 7% if you buy a resale. So people are incentive to register residency if they can, but also if you're a resident, the utility system are cheaper, so cheaper rates. Somebody who is resident is able to buy a car or a motorcycle, while instead it's not possible to buy motorcycle or cars or any auto vehicles in Italy if you don't have a residency. And another thing is the council tax, so the so-called IMU. If somebody buys as resident, as long as they stay longer than 6 months in Italy, they don't have to pay any Italian property tax. While instead, the Italian property tax still applies if somebody stays less than 6 months in Italy. But again, this is a discussion that we tend to do with our clients and see what is the best for them. So if somebody is highly paid and doesn't want to pay taxes in Italy, maybe it's better to stay less than 6 months in Italy and pay the annual property taxes, because they're only a few hundred per year. They don't tend to be 1,000 or like they are, for example, in the US. Final, after sale, what to consider. So now that somebody, if somebody is buying in Italy and planning to move to Italy, they will also need to consider house insurance, the TARI. TARI is the rubbish tax, so the rubbish disposal, based on the number of households, the square meter of a property, and the cadastral value again. Annual property taxes, I mentioned, if somebody stays longer than 6 months. So if somebody actually plans to move permanently to Italy, there are no property taxes to be paid. Consider the running costs, so utilities, service charges. If somebody has, an apartment, it's a part of a complex. If somebody has a pool, considering the cost of managing the swimming pool. And then also, it is important to budget any type of renovation. So if somebody is planning to move to a property that needs to be renovated, you need to consider how much it's going to cost them if they have some kind of budget in mind. It is important actually to remember as well that from a plot of land to a small refurbishment, there are different timing and different level of taxation for resident and or no resident. So if somebody, for example, buy a property that is a ruin, still can, and is not obviously habitable, will still be able to buy as a resident if he's planning to move to Italy, and obviously they will be able still to benefit on the cheaper taxation. So, I mean, we've been helping clients, for instance, from a plot of land, because we also offer services with the renovation, with the people that are planning to move, and we just had a plot of land and we did all the planning permission, and now we are in the process of building the villa. So it is important to think about how long it will take you, or what is your consideration. When do you need to move to Italy? Because if somebody buys just a refurbishment, maybe in 2 months, one can be inside. But if somebody buy something that needs a bit longer renovation and needs a property in a short term, then maybe it's something that needs to be, considered or reviewed. Finally, why Property Organizer? Why us? I'm the founder of Property Organizer. It was back in 2006. So as I said, this year in June, we're going to be 18. Not me. We are a member of International Property Professionals. We keep having always had professional indemnity insurers, also for building work. So we have a trade insurance. We carry out personal property searches for our clients. So we are not just an estate agency that offer properties, but our role is always been from day one buyer's agent. So we listen to our clients, check what they're looking for, give them advice, actually checking as well if what they're looking for is realistic or not, and then search the market throughout. So get in touch with the local agency, get in touch with private owners. In Italy, still 1 out of 4 people buy and sell without agencies involved. So we check that market as well. Developers, somebody is looking for property that are new built. And also we have great amount of contact from notary to lawyers to bankers. So people contact us to let us know properties, and we do not charge any extra fees. So going through an Italian agency or going through us is going to be still one fee, but actually our 4% is better value for money because we get more, and there is no 22% on top of VAT. So as I said, we assist them throughout the process. Plus, we offer complimentary service like getting the fiscal code without them having to go to the tax office, opening an Italian bank account. All the documents are both in Italian and English. And we help them throughout also the after-sale steps of the registration of the taxes, the utilities, switches, etc. We have independent lawyers that work with us and offer legal assistance. We have somebody who just deals with our clients' requirement for mortgages. So we work directly with the banks in Italy, and she's the person who is able to give an advice to the clients how much they are able to borrow, or more or less they're able to borrow, and the type of deals they might get. And we offer clients a renovation, so from planning to being there and managing their project. As I mentioned, we had at the moment 8-9 projects from Sicily to Puglia to Lake Como, and Tuscany and various. So we always help our clients, and we work with local firms and suppliers. So going through us, these are basically our core services to ensure that going through us does not add any extra cost to our clients. And then we assist them also for their residency application afterwards. So there's a lot of clients that need a bit of assistance, in particular since also the UK is out of Europe, and therefore the approach with the Italian consulate can be a little bit challenging. So we're there to advise them and preparing the files for them. So yeah, this is us. It's our website, and we have a team of about 20 people in Italy and various consultants throughout Italy, so we can help clients whether they're looking for a property in Sicily, in Calabria, or Amalfi Coast, Tuscany, Umbria, Liguria, anywhere else. So if you have any question. I think you are on mute.
Any better?
Yes, you are now back.
Sorry, I'm wearing new headphones. Yeah, thank you so much. That was great. We've had quite a lot of questions from the audience now, so I'll just crack on. Okay, so do you need to use a notary in Italy?
Obligatory, yes.
Obligatory.
The notary
Okay.
is the only person who can transfer the final deed, and has to be signed in front of him.
Okay. So it's sort of they legalize the property transfer.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Anthony's asking, will the notary pay me interest on my monies that she's held on account for 6 to 8 weeks?
No, they don't. However, for sending money to the notary account, they do tend to charge a fee. Generally, notary goes from, the cheapest we've seen is from 200 euros to receive a large amount of money to 1,000 euros. We also have notaries that we've been working for over a decade that they don't charge anything because they work with us and with our clients on a regular basis. But I would say, bear in mind that to receive the money, they do get charged.
Okay, fab, thank you. And just to confirm, someone's asked, so Property Organizer is a buyer's agent, so they can be used in the place of an estate agent, yeah?
Exactly, yes. So when clients contact us, we do the searches, and we have a team that just deal with property searches, and it's our role to contact all the local agencies. And it does help because local agencies obviously have a vested interest on a property. We don't have any vested interest on any property, so important for us is to find the right property for the clients. And the difference between an agency approaching us or an agency approaching the buyer is that the agency wants the buyer to go to the property. Whether it's suitable or not, they're not interested. They just want the buyer to go and see the property, and they're hoping that even if it's not suitable, they might fall in love and decide that their requirements are not so important, and they go for the property. With us, the state agency are very direct. We're colleagues, and therefore they tell us the good and the bad about the property, and they don't want to waste their time, and they don't want to waste our time. So, and also because if they give me wrong information, we're not going to use them anymore. So we are able to say, okay, this property, no, it looks nice, but it's not suitable for your need or for what you're looking for.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a question. So can you just confirm that if you use Property Organizer instead of an estate agent, you'll just pay your 4%?
Exactly.
Not an additional 3%?
No, there is no. We're not inventing a wheel. It's the collaboration between agency has always existed. So very often agency collaborate together, and one get paid by the buyer and one get paid by the seller. And we found that in this way is actually a bit more better relationship, because in this way the local agency can focus in on the interest of the seller.
Yes.
And we are focusing on the interest of our buyer. Sometimes we argue about it because obviously seller wants more money, and we try to negotiate, but we try to find a compromise. But yes, no extra fees, and we just work for the buyer side.
Okay, thank you. I'll come over to you, Jake, now. Chris has asked, are there any fees associated with smart currency?
Good question, Chris. No fees. The way that we make our money is, I know we were speaking about the interbank rate before. So when we buy and sell currency, there is a small percentage on the currency exchange rate, and that is how we make our money. So there'll be no hidden fees or any last minute, surprises or anything like that. And also, it's completely free to open an account with no obligation to use us either. So you're able to get all the information that you need, and you don't necessarily have to use us, which it is what it is. But yeah,
it's beneficial.
Exactly.
Thank you. Okay, Terence has asked, this is probably Stefania, what's a typical deposit look like in Italy?
Well, there is no rule, there is no regulations about deposit. When somebody put a property, when want to put a property off the market, the general rule, the custom, let's say, is around the 10%. I have to say, though, that we never push for the 10%. We always trying to say 10,000 euros maximum, because it's for us to say to the seller, we're interested, this is a deposit, put the property off the market and give us those 3, 4, 5 weeks to carry out the due diligence and the survey. And, if somebody is serious in selling, there is no kind of bad feelings behind it, why not? At the end of the day, you just put the money that should not be used by the seller anyway until all the due diligence is carried out.
Okay. And David's asking, what is the typical period between offer accepted to deposit paid and final payment?
Generally, from the offer accepted is around the week then to deposit the money. And then there is a second stage that is the preliminary contract, when somebody pays around between the 20 and 30%, which is a second deposit. And that is usually after between the 4 and 6 weeks, unless there are some hold up with surveyors, but usually between the 4 and 6 weeks. And then at the very end is completion, which is the balance. Now, with the completion, if a property is fine, there are no issues, the sellers have already planned their removal, etc., I would say from the very beginning to the end, between the 2-3 months period. Then it depends. I mean, if somebody, for example, carry out a survey and we find out that there is some retrospective permission to be submitted, or the seller still need to look for a property to move into, then the timing can be a little bit negotiated, or they get a little bit longer.
Okay, fab. We've had a couple of questions from US citizens. So Patrick is asking, does a mortgage have to go through an Italian bank, or can it be mortgaged from a US bank?
No, if somebody wants a mortgage in Italy, it has to be an Italian mortgage. If he wants a mortgage against their own property back in the US, then it's an US bank. But there is a territoriality law that applies for mortgages. So basically, general rule, where the house is, the bank has to be.
Okay. I think that answers the next question, but I'll ask it anyway. Emilia's asking, I was told I could not get a mortgage in Italy since I'm not a resident. I have dual citizenship, US, EU.
No, they can apply for a mortgage. So, yeah, feel free to contact us and we can look at the circumstances. But one thing I would say, mortgages cannot be accepted, or it's very difficult to get mortgages if the value of the property is below the 100,000. So with our clients, we would say the minimum is 100,000, and we have, never had any problem, and therefore the deposit has to be at least 50,000.
Okay, fab, thank you.
From my side, Rosie, as well. Sorry, Rosie, to interrupt. For US clients on the call as well, we're able to help them. I know obviously the conversations from before were revolving around pounds to euros, but we're also able to help with dollars to euros as well, because I can see there's a few questions of people in the US. So I just thought I'd put that in there.
Thank you. Okay, so sorry, I've just lost my place in the questions.
Sorry, that's my fault.
You're good. I know. Right, I'm coming to George. George is asking, going back to the tax. I noted this. This was slide 4. So where it says 3 to 5% of property price plus 22% VAT.
Yeah.
He's asking, is that 22% of the total sales price in tax in addition to the property cost?
No. So the 22% is an Italian VAT on top of a commission. So the tax is not on the property, but for example, let's say the property costs 200,000, and the costing that they will have to consider on top is between, as I said, an average between 6 and 9%. That is depending on if somebody buys as a resident or no resident. So a property of 200,000, I would say, budget around between the 12,000 to the 18,000 on top of it. The 22%, as I said, is if you go through an Italian estate agency and the property is 200,000 and they charge 5%, that would be 5% of 200,000, which is 10,000 euros, plus a 22% on the commission, so on the 10,000.
Okay, fab.
Makes sense?
So yeah, that makes sense. So overall, on top of your property price, what percentage are you looking at for these fees?
Between 6 and 9% altogether.
Okay,
So
fabulous. Thank you.
the last bit when it says total. So if I'm an individual, I have to budget between the 6 and 9%. And instead, if I'm buying from a company, like, let's say I buy a property that is in the process of being built, then I will have to budget on top of the property price between the 10 and 15% to fit everything from the lawyer, the estate agents, the notary, the taxes.
Okay, thank you. And a question for Jake now. If you lock in a property purchase and the rates drop, who takes that loss? So if you lock in a forward contract.
Yeah, there's no loss as such, because you're essentially buying euros on the day. So obviously any price movements after that are relevant to us and yourself. So you're literally locking in a rate today that you see, and it will be delivered in the time frame that you want it to be. So yeah, there's no one covers any loss if the market goes the wrong way, basically.
Okay. And so if you lock in a forward contract and you're then tied to that rate, am I right? So then if the market improves, what would happen?
You're still tied into that rate. That's essentially what you're doing is you're just getting rid of any risk. Obviously the market can go up or go down. So in that case, if you're working towards, say for example, you have a 200,000 euro budget, and you've only got X amount in either pounds or dollars, and you can't go above that, then a forward contract basically tells you that your 200,000 euros that you want are going to cost you X amount in pounds or dollars, and you're absolutely certain of that. So yeah, regardless of what the market does afterwards, if it goes up or down is irrelevant. You're just fixing that price to get rid of that currency risk, if that makes sense.
So it's really just to kind of protect your budget, and it's not going to go anywhere. Okay,
that's it.
That's good to know.
Say for example, if you was buying a house in your home country, i.e. UK, US, wherever it would be, you know exactly how much that property is going to cost on the day that you sign the contract. Whereas, if you don't use a forward contract and you're buying a property overseas, you're not 100% sure what the final price is going to be if you leave the exchange rate until the day. So it's basically just giving you, like you said, peace of mind, securing your budget, and making sure that you can go ahead with the purchase. That's why it's very popular.
Yeah, can I add? This is, for example, for clients that buy new builds that they are in stage payment. That's something, for instance, that we do work with Smart, and we recommend it because at least there is no uncertainty, in particular when property tend to be maybe a 12 months completion. So in this way, it's, as I said, you rest your mind that when the offer is in this way, it's going to say, because a lot of clients, for example, they ask us, can we have a property agreed with the US, or and these the kind of things that can be done. For example, if a seller is the same nationality, so when the seller is the same nationality than the buyer, then we can make the contract in their in their currency, and then in this case there are no arguments, but otherwise you can't lock it.
Yeah. And also if you're buying a new build, for example, over a year, the market could move, anywhere between 5, 10, 15%, due to the factors that we were talking about before. So, just having that peace of mind and knowing exactly how much, like you were saying, Stefania, with a new build, with your stage payments, it's important. You don't want to be losing, any money that you've paid up front because you can't afford the back end of it due to exchange rate movements. So, it can be very, very important to do that.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I think we've got time for just one more question. So Boguslaw has asked Stefania, if there are problems with the deeds, who is responsible for correcting them and who pays for the corrections?
It's going to be the seller and the
The seller.
responsibility of the seller. Yeah, the property need to be sold in full compliance. So there are certain things that are not obligatory depending on when the issue has risen. So, for example, a lot of people talk about certificate of habitability. Well, if there is, and there is this kind of idea that if there is no certificate, the property cannot be sold, which is not correct. It depends when the works have been done and by when the certificate needed to be issued. So that's why it's important to look at case by case and not just have a general list of need the certificates. In certain property, the certificate is required. In certain property, it's not required. And same for banks. In some cases, the banks will require it. In other cases, they won't, depending again on the age of the property and the planning history. And that's why I stress always with our clients and push it. Let's go for a survey. Don't save money on the big amount of costing. Don't save money without doing avoiding a survey, because that is the most important part, more important than the notary, more important than the lawyer, is we need to see what is the history of the planning at the local authority, at the structural government. So everything has to be checked from the point of view of planning.
Okay, sounds good. I think a lot of people kind of dream of having a historic home in Italy as well, don't they? So it's definitely something that you should probably check out, make sure everything's okay. It's not going to fall down. Okay, so I think that's about all we've got time for. Thank you to our experts for all your insight and tips. It's been lovely having you, Jake and Stefania.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. To all of our viewers, we strongly recommend you get in touch with our experts directly, and you'll be able to discuss your requirements in detail. We'll be in touch with their details shortly. Before we finish, I would like to invite you to our webinar this time next week, where we'll be discussing the legal process of buying in Italy. And if you did enjoy this webinar or find it particularly useful, please feel free to leave us a review on Trustpilot. Okay, and have a lovely afternoon. Thank you for joining me again, guys. It's been lovely.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Rosie. Have a good day.